Thanks, Dennis. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
So everybody in the room knows what AVL is and what AVL does, so I'm not going to insult your intelligence by giving you a class on AVL. I'm going to tell you what we've chosen to use AVL for in the state of Colorado to help us get after some challenges that we've had over the past years. We chose to go with the Verizon network fleet system in our light fleet, largely due to the fact that it's a plug-and-play system for a light fleet vehicle. There's really nothing that the operator has to do to operate the system. It's pretty autonomous and in the background and minimally intrusive. So it was a good fit for us, and the price was right for us. Our cost is under $30 a month per unit for that system, so it works out well. We use it in our three-quarter ton and below fleet vehicles, Ford F-250 pickups on down. We've worked to integrate with WEX, our fuel card provider. Many of you probably also work with WEX, and compiling the data between WEX and what AVL provides in order to generate some exception reports that help us manage our fuel control system much better than it had been done in the past. Our ultimate goal is to reduce the amount of paperwork that the fuel coordinators in the regions and the individual equipment drivers have to deal with. We're trying to eliminate the need for paper fuel receipt tracking, manual tracking logs, or updating Excel spreadsheets manually, and along the way reducing the potential for unauthorized activity with those fuel cards. We do that through some exception reporting that I'll describe here in a bit. And we zero in on a few data points that we considered important to our field controls and equipment management program. We've recently backed this up in a policy. This is what we call our light fleet protocol, which tells us how we're supposed to manage our light fleet vehicles and the associated AVL system and our field controls along with that. And that's backed up by a procedural directive that's signed off on by the executive director. So the big catalyst that causes us to explore how we could use AVL to help us with our fuel management was it was back in 2009, 2010. Over that year period of time, we lost about $451,000 to unauthorized criminal activity involving fuel cards. There was one individual working within CDOT who had some help from a couple of fellows outside of CDOT, and they had a little operation going on where they would duplicate fuel credit cards, use them at commercial retail facilities, and they had their own little homemade tanker truck that they would fill up, and they'd go out and sell this fuel to truck stop, or rest areas, truckers on the road, and other people that shouldn't be getting fuel that's subsidized by the taxpayer. A side note, most of that money was recovered through CDOT's insurance, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation did catch the individuals, and they're still cooling their heels in jail right now. So what we extracted from that was that the existing processes we had were not sufficient to protect our one of our most expensive resources, that being our fuel supplies. So how we put together the system, the basis of it is the Verizon Net Fleet AVL system, which you can get with a key fob. And that key fob identifies the driver to the vehicle. We also have the WEX card, which is tied to the vehicle. It's associated with that individual vehicle. And the driver has a PIN number, so you're kind of connecting all the dots for that fuel transaction. You've got the vehicle associated to the credit card, the PIN number associates the driver to the credit card, the fob associates the driver to the vehicle, so it kind of completes that loop. So when it does go to a fuel pump for a transaction, you can verify through the AVL system and your WEX that that individual and that car or that truck was at that fuel pump at that specific time, and it gives you a clue that that was probably a valid, justified transaction. And then we get reports out of that system that I'll talk about here in just a bit. These are some of the things that we're using Verizon to notify us about or give us report outs on. Idle time in excess of our prescribed limits, We started out with 59 minutes as our cutoff point, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. It notifies us of any mechanical faults with the vehicle, like all AVL systems are capable of doing. It gives us reminders about any recalls based on the type of vehicle that we're dealing with. We have the ability to put a geofence, and I'll describe how we use that in a little bit here. And it also tracks, of course, driver behaviors, speed, location, etc., that the leadership has the discretion to use as they see fit. Okay, so some of our exception reports that we use is, we call this one a driver count exception. If there's an excessive number of card swipes at a pump, we give them basically 3 tries to get the card swiped and get their PIN into the system. And if they fail after those 3 tries, well, the card goes into a lock mode, and they have to we have to call WEX and get that card reactivated, because that could be an indication that some unauthorized person has gotten a hold of your fuel card, and they're out there trying to make it work. So that triggers us to look into what's going on with that card. Does the right person have it, and are they authorized to be using it? It also triggers when they do non-fuel purchases. If you go to the gas station with your fuel card and attempt to buy soda and candy and microwave burritos, that's not why we give a state employee a credit card. But they are authorized to purchase fuel and automotive related items like windshield washer fluid, motor oil if they need it, and they're authorized 1 car wash per month. And we have it set up where those transactions are coded, and the system knows that those are legitimate transactions. It'll also flag out-of-state transactions. We do allow our employees to take our state fleet vehicles out of state if necessary, but that's something that they let me know about ahead of time. So I'm aware of the fact that one of our vehicles is in fact going out of state, and I can get in the system and manipulate that so it doesn't trigger an alert in that case. But outside of notifying the proper people in the organization, it's going to let us know if that vehicle's gone out of state and a purchase was made at a fuel station. And it also tells us we've set up each type of vehicle has a maximum tank capacity. That's in the system. So that if they try to fill over the maximum tank capacity, it's going to let us know that as well. And we have the leadership look into why did they buy more fuel than the vehicle can actually hold. Did they bring a 5-gallon can from home in the trunk, so they're taking free gas home for their lawnmower? Or was there a legitimate reason that they bought more than the tank capacity? But it gives the leaders the opportunity to at least investigate that and find out what happened. Okay, so all this data we collect, I know this is kind of an eye chart for you guys sitting out there, but we use it in a SharePoint dashboard that all of our managers and leaders have an opportunity to look at every week. They get email notifications that tell them the report is available to be viewed, and they can go in there and drill down to this report and look at their individual section or region, and they can drill down to the vehicle level, they can drill down to the individual employee level if necessary, and they can kind of see the trends over time of whether or not their section is improving in regards to fuel consumption, the number of exception reports that are generated each week, and you'll be able to see that here on some of our upcoming slides. The top portion there with the blue bars, that tells us how many transactions we have per month across our agency in the state. And then it does a little bit of comparative analysis of costs statewide for the fuel purchases that we made over time. It shows us our peaks and valleys. Okay. This one compares month to month, and it compares the driver count exceptions we talked about, number of card swipes that errored out into an exception report, non-fuel purchases, which luckily we're not seeing any of those. I think we've pretty well got the message out to our employees what that card is allowed to be used for. Out-of-state exceptions, very rare. Tank capacity exceptions, also now very rare. So basically what you're seeing, the majority of our transactions are driver count exceptions, where they fill up more than 1 or 2 times in a day. One of the things we've realized after we implemented this process is the opportunity for somebody to make those fraudulent fuel purchases is very, very difficult now. It's very difficult to do that without getting caught. It's made our exception reporting much easier, Previously, it was manually done, and that takes a lot of work on the part of the fuel coordinators to correlate all that information. Now that it's automatic, it's much quicker. It's reduced idle time. We have a lot less problems with people running their vehicle for no good reason longer than an hour. It's had a positive impact on our drivers' behavior. They know that there's a system in their car, so they're a little bit less likely to speed or take that vehicle somewhere where they shouldn't be taking a state fleet vehicle. It automatically captures our mileage. That helps us out with our usage reporting. And as I said earlier, we get notifications for manufacturers' recalls through that system. One of the nice things about it is, for those of you that are using CNG in your fleets, we were able to put a geofence around all our CNG stations in the state. And you can create an opportunity report where you can show leaders and employees, hey, you drive by this CNG station 3-4 times a week. It's not that far out of your way. All you had to do is make a right turn and go a quarter mile out of your way, and you could have filled up with CNG instead of gasoline. Why aren't you doing that when you have a CNG equipped vehicle? So it shows that the opportunities out there to use that fuel. And another benefit of using the system is it has also kept our drivers out of trouble in some cases, you know, because the public, they see a state fleet car, a lot of times they assume it's CDOT when it wasn't. And they make a complaint, and we can use our AVL to verify whether or not that vehicle was there at the time they said the incident occurred. And we can oftentimes prove that, I'm not saying the accident or the incident didn't happen, but it wasn't one of our guys that did it. So maybe you need to talk to the county or the municipality that drives a similar vehicle. It might have been them. So our goals for the future is to continue working towards eliminating all that manual paperwork tracking of our fuel transactions and management and make it a completely automated system, which will reduce the workload on the fuel coordinators at the regional level. Continue to positively influence driver behaviors, increase our maintenance readiness, reduce our fuel consumption and our greenhouse gas emissions. I know a lot of people in the room are probably familiar with that concept. We've been tasked to reduce by 20% by the year 2020. So that's a pretty lofty goal, and this is one of the tools we'll be using to help us get there. And then ultimately, why do we do any kind of AVL system is to optimize our utilization of our fleets. Okay, now Dennis will have the question and answer session after we're finished here, so we'll defer that.